And welcome back to AGROTAIN Live here on RFD-TV. If you're just joining us, we've discussed some of the groundbreaking research that shows that urea still very vulnerable to volatility, even when it's applied in cold temperatures. The research conducted, as you saw, from Montana State University. We have Martin Case and John Hassel with us from AGROTAIN on our program tonight. John, their studies from Montana State, of course, as we say, was very valuable, but you have other universities all around the country, from north to south, east to west. You've picked out a few of those to share with us tonight.
I have, and I just thought I'd look at from the eastern part of the country over to the western part of the country. So we have our first visual. This is Virginia Tech, and it's a study looking at injected UAN versus dribbled UAN. And what we found out is that in both cases, at a 90-pound rate or 130-pound rate, that the dribbled UAN will out-yield the injected. And this is real important for the farmers in Virginia because we're talking about more energy and time and labor when you inject as opposed to dribbling it. And on this particular case, you're talking about maybe a bushel and a half of corn in one cost for the AGROTAIN, but yielding between 17 and 23 bushels in this particular study.
Is that right? That's Virginia Tech, and you go to Kentucky.
Yes.
You also have some data there from the University of Kentucky.
Right. Well, the first one I think that we're going to talk about is probably from one of our dealer distributors. Miles Farm Supply has a study that they've been doing for us, I guess for about the last 3 years. And the data is really significant, and it's important to us to understand that multiple year data is what you want to see. These one-year studies are okay, but you got to replicate them, and the more years you have, the better. And in this particular case, we're looking at a difference between 90 pounds and 150 pounds of N applied per acre of 17 and 33 bushels different. Again, you start talking about the cost, and you're talking about maybe 1 bushel, 2 bushels to pay for the nitrogen, but then you're getting 15 to 31 bushels difference.
Right.
A lot of difference, and you know the bottom line is what we're really getting at here with producers.
Absolutely.
Saving more nitrogen to go into that plant and to produce that grain head than losing it through the volatility portion of loss.
All right. And again, as you say, 15 years, 1 year is really not all that helpful. And this year will be added on to other years, 15 at least, that you have prior to this.
That's absolutely right. And here's one, this is Kansas State University. Well, they switched on me. Here is University of Kentucky out of Princeton, Dr. Lloyd Murdoch's work. And Lloyd has been doing research for us for probably the last 3 years, 4 years. And on this particular study, again, it's a 3-year average. 75 pounds of nitrogen was used, and what we saw was a 21 bushel increase.
Wow.
Again, go back and look at it. A bushel and a half to pay for your nitrogen, and yet you're going to get 19 to 20 bushels return. You can't argue with that over 3 years.
Absolutely right. And again, you say you have researchers that you are in contact with all around the country, and we've been in Kentucky and Virginia, but also on the West Coast. You had some thoughts from a California study, I believe.
I did have some thoughts. California is really unique because they use high levels of nitrogen out there, anywhere from 200 to 300 pounds per acre. And if you look at this, we were seeing as much at that 300-pound level as 26 bushel increase over just straight UAN. And this study was actually done with our dual inhibitor product called AGROTAIN Plus. So when we look at all of this research and we see what's going on out there, there's a message that it tells us, and that is that our products work. But I want to tell the people out in the audience something, and I think this is really important for them to know. I can sit here and I can show you data point after data point after data point that proves our research. The most important thing for you to do as a producer is to go out and talk to your extension researcher in your state and talk to them about our products, and they'll tell you because they've worked with it. Again, 15 years of research.
Absolutely. Great point, I think. And our viewers are going to have a lot of questions. Anytime AGROTAIN is with us, we have a lot of questions from producers all around the country in various crops. And this is your time to call in with your questions as it relates to nitrogen loss. How does AGROTAIN work? Will it work for me in my application, in my part of the country, on my crop? Here is that toll-free number, 866-547-9696. Start calling now, and we'll be anxious to hear from you no matter where you're from or whatever your question might be. 866-547-9696. Phone lines are now open. We go to back to looking at a few clips we did. We had folks from AGROTAIN with us on a program here last winter, and Dr. Rick Norman from the University of Arkansas was with us to share some observations, and we're going to hear from him, and after that we'll return with more discussion about AGROTAIN and nitrogen loss. First, our video.
I'm Mike Adams, host of the AgriTalk radio program, and tonight we'll be discussing something that's very much on the minds of a lot of farmers: fertilizers. More specifically, though, nitrogen and how to make it more efficient. Dr. Rick Norman from the University of Arkansas, thank you for being with us. When we say nitrogen loss, what's actually occurring out in that field and with that plant?
Okay, nitrogen loss, there's three main avenues, and you've mentioned a couple of them, as Mike has. Ammonia volatilization, leaching, and denitrification. What a urease inhibitor does, like AGROTAIN, is it's going to block that urea conversion to ammonia gas. Instead of letting it take place in 2 to 5 days, it's going to make it take place over a 10-day period. So if we apply our nitrogen and use a urease inhibitor in combination with a nitrification inhibitor, we can minimize those three-in-loss processes and therefore cut a better yield.
Mike Stegman with us, president of AGROTAIN, and tell us a little bit more about the operation and this family of products you have available for farmers.
First of all, we've got several products specifically targeted for agriculture. AGROTAIN is our keystone hallmark product, and it's a liquid product. It's put on dry or liquid urea, stops volatility. Our newest product is a dry form of AGROTAIN. And then finally, our product AGROTAIN Plus, which is also a triple action product containing the urease inhibitor and nitrification inhibitor, and that's for use with liquid fertilizer.
Dr. Norman, let me ask you this, because you come at it from the scientific side of it. You would not endorse a product that you didn't believe in, hadn't done the research on and seen the results on.
No, we wouldn't. And what we're endorsing is the urease inhibitor that is trade name AGROTAIN. Whether other companies sold it, we'd still be endorsing it. It's not AGROTAIN we're endorsing, it's the inhibitor itself that AGROTAIN owns.
Again, it's always, as we talk about this, amazing that the viewers, as they get more information about nitrogen loss, no matter what the temperature, and that's, I guess, as you are out there hearing it from Martin, from the customers firsthand, and from retailers, as they get some of the success stories back, it would seem.
Oh yes, you know, they're seeing the results in the field once they've tried it. I mean, they always knew it was occurring when it was warm, but as they saw this cold weather issues popping up, they're ever more convinced.
And John, this year, nobody likes to go through a year we had weather-wise, no matter what part of the country, cold early, and Martin mentioned it, cold in the middle, cold at the harvest, wet all the way through. But I guess from a researching standpoint, this data will be important as you move down the line 5 years, 10 years from now.
Exactly. Everything that you learn about your product in research is important. And that way you can address when it's the right time and the right product to use at the right place.